Hey everyone, it's Ari Honeyford with the Awkwardly Zen podcast, and I am super excited to have my friend Seth Turner here today. Seth has amazing talent with channeling, and we're going to let him talk about that here in a minute. But first, Seth, why don't you tell everyone a little bit about yourself, where you're from, maybe how we met?
I'm originally from the Midwest, the Chicago area. That's where I'm born and raised. But I've traveled around a lot to other places and lived in other places too. Um, and as far as meeting you, I met you through Melissa at Crystal Joys, and she was the connector between you and I.
Yeah, absolutely. Melissa is an amazing practitioner. She is also an Awkwardly Zen partner, so is Seth. So you guys can check her out there. So, Seth, tell me a little bit about what you channel, how you channel, all of those things, because it's a pretty unique set of entities that you work with.
Yeah, there are nine divinely masculine entities. I started channeling them roughly about a decade and a half ago. They came through, interestingly enough, during a session that I had with a channeler friend of mine, and the spirit of my father brought them through. So, and since then, they and I have been working on myself, and then in the last 4 or 5 years or so, they've wanted to work with others.
Yeah,
So they've been preparing me on many different levels for that kind of work.
I love that. And I was blessed to have a session with you and work with these entities myself, and it was a game changer. There was some really direct communication with me about some things that I needed to work on and to adjust, and I just really appreciate that. Can you tell everyone, like, because everyone channels a little differently, uh,
Hmm.
what it feels like to you, kind of what the experience is for both you and for the other person when you're working with them?
So for me personally, it feels like I'm taking a step backwards, not completely out of the way, just a step back. They step forward, not in the sense of playing like a game of hokey pokey or not hokey pokey, but uh,
Hokey pokey works. They're coming in, you're
yeah,
going out. Yeah, I get that.
yeah, yeah. So basically, and sometimes I'm just the translator, so I'm kind of half in, half out. Other times I'm completely out of the way and they talk through me.
Okay, so it's a little bit more like trance channeling sometimes, where they take your physical being over. Is that right?
Yes, it's a more of a partnership than a complete taking over, though.
Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah, I love that. When I first started channeling, I had one instance where I felt like there was an entity that kind of worked with my body, and it was not comfortable for me. So it's something that I shut
yeah,
down pretty quickly. I think it's interesting that there's so many different ways that people can channel, from
yeah,
just getting those messages and letting them come through to truly allowing another entity to take over. So I love that yours is somewhere in the middle there. Now,
yeah,
go ahead. Did you have something there?
yeah. So a good friend of mine who's also a channel describes it as a numerous lane highway or a knob on the radio.
Yeah.
So basically, each person who channels picks up a different station, if you will, or picks up a different lane on that multi-lane highway. If you think of a 25-lane highway, each lane is a different frequency, a different vibration. So, and you do that the same way with a radio. Each is a different frequency, different vibration. So each person who channels, whether they're doing psychic channeling or mediumship or something bigger or different from that, it's all different stations, all different lanes, depending on which analogy you want to go with.
Yeah, yeah, I love that. Okay, so you work, I know you've brought in some new entities recently, but going back to the
Mm.
classics, with these divine masculine entities you work with, have you ever gotten any guidance from them on what the meaning was behind the divine masculine? Like, why is that such an important thing for them to identify as?
They do that because in this current circumstance of the world, the idea of masculine and feminine and the binary is such a present topic
Mhm.
that they wanted to solidify what end of the spectrum they are part of.
Okay.
So it's they are using current circumstances, which is a pretty common thing amongst entities, at least to my understanding.
Yeah.
They identify as something to alleviate any misconceptions about things, and they use the current circumstances to help with that. So, at the time that they identify themselves as a divine masculine, they didn't really say, "Oh, we are divine masculine." They just that's the energy that they brought with them,
Okay.
and that's the energy that uh, came with my father when they were brought through.
Yeah,
So,
absolutely.
so that is the how the how and the what, if you will, of them.
Yeah, I think it's really interesting because I get a lot in my readings and my sessions as well about divine masculine and divine feminine, and I think it's back before metaphysics for me, masculine had a totally different feel, or I had a different idea about it than I do now.
Yeah.
And like for me, I have a lot of masculine energy. I work a lot with the masculine energy. It's something that I call in when I need it in specific situations. And
Hmm.
same thing with the divine feminine. And so I love the idea that there is somebody out there who can channel entities that are really working with this exact energy, because
Hmm.
like I said, with my session with you, it was very helpful to be able to tap into that kind of energy and really get that response from
Yeah.
that divine masculine. Now, you've told me recently that you have started working with some divine feminine as well. Is that true?
Yes, that is.
So
There's
what does that
four.
look like?
Uh, it's a different. Uh, it's a different radio station. I'll just put it that way.
Okay.
Um, and I've just like in the beginnings of working with the nine, I am learning with them in a partnership to figure out where my nervous system plays in, because a lot of times my nervous system is affected, not in a negative way, but is effective in a certain capacity. So I've been working with them mostly in my dream time or in my meditation space, which I go into a dreamlike state when I'm meditating too. So they're teaching me how to work with them.
Okay. And I think that's so fascinating. One of the things I see through Awkwardly Zen all the time is we'll have partners that'll come in and they'll say, "This is my modality. This is what I do." And then as time goes on, things morph, things change,
Hmm.
new representatives from the other side come through, new gifts come in. And I always say to someone who's new, who's coming in, be careful not to pigeonhole yourself. Be careful not to
Yeah.
create this situation where you're only doing this one thing, because I feel like sometimes spirit has a different plan for us, right? To guide
Hmm.
us down that path. Do you think that eventually the divine feminine, you'll be working with them in your readings, or does that feel like it might be something that's just personal for you?
I think it's gonna be both.
Yeah.
That's they've indicated both, and it's a lot faster than when I started with the nine. It's because the groundwork and the foundation have already been laid.
Right.
So it's already there. It's just, as I said, it's just a different frequency on the knob
Yeah.
of the radio stations.
Yeah.
So it's different frequency, different kind of work, different kind of messaging. Um, they've said that they each have a particular different perspective on the messaging that they bring across. They don't, just like the nine, they don't speak in absolutes. So this or that. It's very much and.
Okay.
Um, so that helps me a lot because I don't like thinking in absolutes personally.
Me neither.
Even even though they come up, they come up and they trip us up and all the time. But so it's not something that I meet with trepidation. It's something I meet with more excitement,
Yeah.
and even sprinkle of magic and wonder.
I love that. Well, and I think that's so true too, right? Like the first time anyone's going through that awakening or they have these gifts coming through or you're channeling, most of the time people are going to be a little out of whack around it, right? Because
Hmm.
it's so different, it's so unique. But I find that with myself as well that the gifts that come in now are so much easier for me to embrace
Hmm.
because it's fun, it's an adventure, it's I have embraced the weird in my life, and have decided that that's who I am, and
Hmm.
that makes it easier for them to slide in, I think. Now, when you first got that message from your dad, who brought these 9 divine masculine in, and this might be too personal, so feel free not to answer it, but I mean, I'm sure that that was a little bit of a shock to the system, or was your family metaphysically minded before that?
Yes and no.
Okay.
I'll start with the no first because
Okay.
and then I'll go to the yes. So no, I actually was raised in very much a straight line of Reconstructionist Judaism.
Okay.
So Reconstructionist Judaism, just to give you in a nutshell, was is the most recent sect of Judaism, born in Philadelphia, and it's the most liberal out of the branches of Judaism.
Okay.
So I was raised in Judaism, so metaphysical was not in the language space at all. It was very much that upbringing. And it wasn't until, and now I'm shifting into the yes part of that.
Okay.
It wasn't until I actually met with a social worker by the name of Richard Olney. I met with him for like 3, 4 sessions because he passed a year later. He did a shamanic version of hypnosis.
Okay.
And that kind of opened the door, not into metaphysics, but just into like, there's something more to me
Right.
because I drifted so easily into hypnosis under his care in those 2 to 3, maybe 4 sessions, that it just opened the door to things start to come in.
Okay.
And I'm not saying channeling specifically, but people in my life. The first deep dive into the metaphysical happened when I was 11, 12 years old, and I worked with a shaman by the name of Manuel Flores. And I also worked with briefly with his mother. The first time I met her was in the same situation. This older woman who didn't speak any English at all had this giant hawk skull necklace, walking around, working with other clients, visiting at a home in another suburb in Illinois.
Okay.
But I worked with Manuel, and that was the beginning of my, deep dive into the metaphysical. He opened the door wide for me. And that relationship, he became like a brother to me. He passed about 10 years ago, I believe, 10, 15 years ago. But he opened things up, open wide from, that first session to each time he visited the house that I grew up in to do sessions with me and with other people, and so he made his world open to me.
Hmm. That's beautiful.
Um, and then since then, there have been channelers, healers, you know, new age shops, books I've been curious about, and just kind of like a nonstop, barrage of different things over the years.
Yeah, I find that I always am drawn to the people like you that continue the journey, right? And I think
Mm,
there's so many people in the metaphysical world who who get that opening experience, and then I feel like they pause at a certain place, and we have to keep actively choosing to keep learning and opening our mind more and allowing things in when it feels comfortable, right? In our own time,
Mm.
in our own journey. Do you find, like, if you think back on your path and where you've come from and where you're headed, have there been times that you've had to, like, pause for a minute to deal with being the human that you are, or there's situations that have come up that it's like, "Okay, hold on, I'm gonna step away from this for a minute and come back," or has it been pretty steady with you since your mind got open to that?
There have been moments of pausing, but it's been pretty steady.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, there have been moments where I question the path, like we all
Right.
do, from time to time. And but once I get through that, it's full steam forward.
Yeah.
And I like to use what the nine call the symbol of the living road,
Okay.
which is like we all say, life is a journey. What is your life's path? You know, all those terminologies and so on. And they describe it as more of a living path where the things change with each step you take. It's more like a river. It's not a solid concrete road that you're walking on or a paved hiking trail. It's something that evolves and changes and with each step that you take, each choice that you make,
Yeah.
it branches 1,000 times before you get to your destination. And sometimes it branches 1,000 times every time you've taken a single step.
Yeah.
So that's what I like to use to describe a lot of the things that I've encountered. It's a living road.
Yeah, and I love the image of that river because, like, it makes me think of even whitewater rafting where you're going down the road and it's crazy sometimes, or going down the river and then you get caught at a rock, right? And so for a second
Hmm.
everything's paused. For a second everything, it's like letting you regroup before you go into the next adventure. And I definitely see that in my own journey as well, where there's just
Yeah.
moments where we just need to breathe for a second before we hit the next one. So,
Well, there was a moment, a period of like a couple of years in the past where I would have a lot of those rocks come in my way and I would actually physically fall down
mm,
and smack the heck out of my knees.
mm,
And it would be like, okay, I'm not here, I'm here.
mhm,
And those would be moments where I just like, okay, kind of back off a little bit,
yeah,
kind of reassess things, kind of um, literally step slowly
yeah.
and move slower because clearly I'm moving too fast.
I'm laughing because I literally just wrote a script about slow down, the message that I've been getting from my guides. So
Mm,
that synchronicity that you just said that. Thank you for sharing that.
you're welcome.
Divinely timed, correct? So
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
I think it's interesting, the idea and I mean, that happens to me too sometimes. For me, instead of falling down, I tend to run into things.
Ah,
Walls will jump out in front of me. I mean, they've been there forever, but so I'm the same way. Like, there's a physical reminder sometimes for me, like, hey, be here now, be here now.
yeah.
Um, okay, well, we're getting to the end. How does someone book a session with you?
They can go to my website, which is ofthecenter.com. They can send me a message and find out availability. They can also find me on Instagram under the same handle of the center.
Okay,
They can contact me that way as well.
okay,
Either way, I can look at my calendar and see what availability overlaps and go from there.
awesome.
Sessions are 111, which is a lot of people have commented saying thank you for the angel number
Yep.
to me. So that's the best way to get a hold of me and to set up those sessions.
Love that, love that, and I highly recommend booking a session with Seth for sure. I will put all that information in the write-up for the podcast as well. So to leave everyone today, Seth, if you were talking to someone who is freshly on their path, they just have had their eyes opened to the wonderment that is the metaphysical world and spirituality, what would be one of the things that you would say to them to help them maybe be a little more comfortable in this weird, crazy world that we've embraced?
Find like-minded and like-spirited people.
Yes.
Uh, Take your time. Don't rush. Don't forget to breathe. Drink lots of water. You'll need it.
Yes. I love that.
And
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 what a
have fun.
have fun. What a concept. What a concept. I think that's one of those things I forget sometimes. That's when they run me into those walls.
Yes.
All right. Well, Seth, thank you so much for your time today. This was a lovely conversation, and I'm sure everyone understands a little bit more about how much of a deep thinker you are and how connected you are to your entities that you work with. And I'm so grateful that you spent time with us today.
Thank you.